So now we're going to talk about persuasive technology. And this is an interesting area of computing and mobile computing where we can use devices to help persuade people to act in a certain way, to improve their lives in certain ways. And so we'll first talk about some of the theoretical foundation of this, and then we'll move on to some examples of applications that apply the concepts of persuasion in people's daily life. So one of the places that persuasion started was with a professor named B.J. Fogg from Stanford. And back in 1996, he had this idea that he called captology, which is computers as persuasive technologies. And he really believed that this could lead to world peace within 30 years, and that computers can encourage us to change our behaviors and improve our lives in various ways as individuals and as a larger society. And he saw mobile phones coming soon after that and saw that mobile phones would be the most important platform for changing human behavior. These are devices we have on us all day that are with us when we're doing various good or bad behaviors, and they can really help us to see what we're doing, to tell us in the moment if we should do one thing or do another, and help us see kind of these long-term patterns that happen in our lives, because they're always with us. They're always able to sense what's going on around us. And so he really saw mobile phones as this really core platform for changing people's behaviors. And over the past 15 years or so, there have been a variety of different research projects looking into ways that the mobile phone can help us change our behavior in healthcare, in wellness, in communication, in lots of different domains. So BJ has this 8-step process for design. If you want to help change someone's behavior, first you need to pick a specific behavior to target. Then you have to choose your audience, who is going to be using your system, and then learn about what's preventing them from doing that target behavior. And then choosing a familiar technology channel. Here in this class, it would be the mobile phone, and finding relevant examples of persuasive technology. What are other people doing in that particular domain that you're interested in? And then imitate those successful examples on the technology channel that you're using, on the mobile phone. How can you use something that someone might have done in a survey study with physicians on a mobile phone, for example? And testing, iterating quickly, using a lot of the methods that we talk about in this class. Building something really fast, trying it out, improving it, trying it again, and then keep expanding on your success. BJ has been able to use that in a variety of different domains, and others have been able to use it as well over the past 10 or 15 years. Some other theory that's important to behavior change is the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. And this came from 1992 and looks at different stages that people are in when they're trying to make a behavior change in their life. So the first one is pre-contemplation. So this is someone who hasn't even really thought about making a change yet. They're not really interested in taking action, in the near future. Then you get to contemplation. Someone thinks, well, maybe I ought to make a change. Maybe I need to start running more, or maybe I need to start eating better, or maybe I need to start calling my parents more often. Whatever that behavior change is, someone at that point is thinking about making the change. And then there's a stage called preparation. That's where people are actually preparing a plan, figuring out how they're going to tackle that behavior change in their lives. Then they move on to action, where they're actually applying that behavior change in their daily life, and then to maintenance, where they're actively trying to maintain that new behavior in their daily actions. And finally, the last stage is termination. And that basically means that that behavior is now a core part of their life. There's no temptation to go back. If you think of people quitting smoking, right, when they finally get to that point where they're not tempted to take another cigarette, then they're at that termination stage. So you can think, if you're designing behavior change technology, you can target it to specific aspects in this trans-theoretical model. And so you can make interventions that are matched to particular stages. Earlier stages might involve building awareness of some of the changes that people might make, or the awareness of just how big a problem is in their lives based on whatever can be sensed on the phone. And then later stages could involve goals and commitments and making sure people are staying on track. And there have been some challenges to the model. So some people say, well, these stages aren't exactly so clear cut, right? People don't necessarily move in a linear fashion from one to the other. They might fall back a little bit. They might be tempted to go back for a day, or literally just fall back and have to start over in a certain behavior change pattern. So those are things to think about. It's not always just a linear model from start to finish. It might be something where people are going back and forth, and you need to support that with your system. But it's a useful way to think about where in a change-making process someone is. So there are a variety of applications on the market that appeal to this. There are things like Nike Plus that can encourage you to work out more and get your friends involved in encouraging you to work out. There are a lot of food choice apps where you can see the calories of what you're consuming and help you to eat healthier. A variety of logging apps to log workout, food, weight, all sorts of things in your daily life and persuade you to improve in some way or another. And then there are a variety of health applications. So one of them was built by Kay Connolly called When Do We Eat? And this was designed for people with low literacy who are kidney disease patients. And just to build an awareness of what they're eating and when they're eating, because they really had to watch things like salt intake and other things in their lives. And so they could scan barcodes on food that they ate, and it just built up a database of what they were eating and let them reflect on that over time. And that led to better eating behaviors, just being aware of what they were eating and seeing that over time. There's a variety of other mobile health applications, some that let you see ingredients of what you're eating, some that can remind you to take medication at various times, and some that can help track disease and track other information, and then help people follow up on that in their daily lives. An example called My Food Phone was basically a food blog, and it was a very simple application. All you had to do was take a picture of everything you ate. And it made a little food blog, a pictorial food blog, showing you, breakfast, lunch, dinner, any snacks throughout the day, and you could just look at what you were eating. And by just looking at what you were eating, you could see the unhealthy patterns. You could see yourself eating the big slice of cake at night, or you could see yourself having, lots of coffee with milk and sugar and other things in it all day that are just adding to your total calorie intake. So that was a way to just have people reflect on what they were eating and build awareness so that they could then have various behavior change based on that. There was a system for asthma patients where they could log, when they were having asthma attacks and look at those patterns over time and help them to, get on better regimens for medication or help doctors see what they could do to help them get better. There's a whole variety of applications that we're looking at activity, and particularly people's step counts throughout the day. How much was someone walking? There was an application called Chick Click that was made that helped, this was teen girls, look at how much they were walking and had a little peer pressure to see, were they walking as much as their friends, who was walking the most in a group. And this was a really interesting kind of first app looking at how much you were walking with respect to other people. But as you can imagine, this competition led to some issues. Not everybody walks the same amount. So if you always walk a few thousand steps less than your friend, and maybe they just live farther from school, for example, now you're going to just feel like you're always going to lose every day, and that might decrease your motivation. Sonny Consalvo built a system called Houston at Intel Research, and it was the same sort of system where you could see different contacts of yours. You could see how much they were walking each day. And she also saw that it could be demotivating if people were walking much, much farther than you were. But in general, it helped people be aware of their step count every day. And that's often the first step to making change, is just knowing where you're at and knowing where you want to be. So some of the design recommendations that came out of Sonny's work, we're looking at giving people credit for other activities. People would go for a bike ride or go for a swim, and they wouldn't get credit for that in the system, right? Because it was only tracking step counts. But that system should provide a way for personal awareness of activity level. Like I said before, knowing where you're at is often the first step to helping make change. And also considering some of the practical constraints of users' lifestyles. So not everyone can wear a pedometer on whatever clothes they have on, right? A pedometer doesn't clip very easily onto a dress. A pedometer might not look very good on a belt if you're going